Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. I sat in my usual chair by the front window, dark glasses hiding eyes that could suddenly see everything again. My fingers rested lightly on the Braille novel I pretended to read, tracing familiar dots I no longer needed. My gaze, sharp and focused, stayed on my husband Tyrone, as he checked his phone for what had to be the 15th time in an hour. Every time the screen lit up, his mouth curved into that secretive smile I had memorized over the past 3 months, ever since my vision returned. 3 months earlier, I had opened my eyes and seen the ceiling of our bedroom in Atlanta. For a few stunned seconds I lay very still, staring at the cracks in the paint, the soft shadow of the ceiling fan, the faint line where Tyrone's cologne had stained the wall near the dresser. The doctors had said it might happen, that the swelling around my optic nerve could go down on its own. But after 2 years of darkness, I had buried that hope so deeply that, when it came true, I almost did not believe it. Tyrone slept beside me, one arm thrown over his head, breathing slow and even. I watched him the way a person watches a stranger on a train, cataloging details. The faint lines around his mouth, the slight frown between his brows, the way his phone rested on the nightstand within easy reach. I knew that I should wake him, that I should scream with joy, cry, call every family member I had. Instead, something in my chest tightened and held me still. It was not fear exactly. It was instinct. The truth was, Tyrone had been different for months. He had become distant and distracted, his patience thin, his voice sharper than it used to be. He had started staying late at work, showering as soon as he came home, talking on his phone in another room. I had felt the change long before I could see it. So when my vision returned, I made a decision that surprised even me. I decided to say nothing. That first morning, I got out of bed carefully, moving the way I had learned while blind, counting steps, sliding my hand along furniture I could now see clearly. I found my dark glasses on the nightstand and put them on, the world dimming but not disappearing. I took my white cane and tapped my way to the bathroom, playing the role I had been given. When Tyrone woke up, I greeted him exactly as I had every other morning for 2 years. He kissed my cheek, told me he had a long day ahead, and never suspected that my eyes were following him as he moved around the room. By the end of that first week, my intuition had been confirmed in the cruelest way. Tyrone was having an affair. I watched him step into the hallway whenever his phone rang, his voice soft and warm in a way it no longer was with me. I learned to read his expressions through the dark lenses, the guilty way he glanced toward me before walking away, the excitement that lit his face when a certain name flashed across the screen. I said nothing. I listened. I watched. I began to plan. Now, sitting in my chair by the window, I watched him stand up and walk toward the kitchen. His shoulders were tense, his steps restless. His phone buzzed again, and this time he answered so quickly it almost slipped from his hand. "Hey, baby," he said, voice dropping into that intimate tone that used to belong to me. "Yes, I am at home. She is in the living room." He lowered his voice even more, but I could still hear him clearly. "No, she cannot hear us. She just sits there with her books." My hand stayed steady on the Braille page, but my jaw clenched. He was talking about me as if I were a piece of furniture, as if I were an object that could be moved or ignored. I know, Tyrone continued. "A few more months, and I will have everything sorted out. Then we can be together for real." I almost laughed out loud. He had no idea that I was also sorting things out. He had no idea that for 3 months I had been documenting every questionable transaction, every secret message, every betrayal. "She will not be a problem," Tyrone said. "She depends on me for everything. Where is she going to go? What is she going to do? She is blind." He paused, listening to whatever she said. I had already discovered her name, Kiana. I had seen it in an email he left open on the laptop I supposedly could not use. "I will see you in an hour," Tyrone said at last. "I am telling her I have a late meeting." "Yes. I love you too." When he walked back into the living room, I tilted my head slightly toward my book, my face calm, every nerve on fire. "Monica," he said, using the patient, slightly louder tone he had started to use with me, as if blindness had somehow affected my hearing. "I have to go into the office for a few hours. We have a big project deadline." I lifted my face toward his voice. "All right," I said softly. "Will you be home for dinner?" "Probably not," he answered. "Do not wait up." "Be careful driving," I said. It pleased me a little to know that the concern in my voice was real, but no longer for him. It was for the version of myself that had once believed every word he said. I heard him pick up his keys, heard his shoes cross the hardwood floor toward me. He leaned down and kissed the top of my head, a gesture that used to feel like love but now felt like mockery. "You will be all right here by yourself?" he asked. "I will be fine," I replied. "I always am." Moments later the door opened and closed. I listened to his car back out of the driveway and disappear down the street. Only then did I remove my dark glasses and lay them on the table beside me. The living room looked different than it did the last time I had seen it 2 years earlier. Tyrone had redecorated while I was blind. The beige couch we bought together had been replaced with a deep burgundy sectional. New abstract paintings hung on the walls, bold colors and sharp lines I would not have chosen. The rug was new. The coffee table was new. Everything looked carefully curated, like a life arranged for someone else's eyes, not mine. That was the point, I realized. In his mind, my opinion no longer mattered. I stood slowly, my legs steady, my steps sure. For 3 months I had practiced moving with sight again, alone in the early mornings while Tyrone was at work. At first, the flood of visual information had been overwhelming, but my brain adjusted faster than I expected. The eye specialist had been right. The damage had been to the optic nerve, not the eyes themselves. Once the swelling subsided, the world came rushing back. Tyrone never noticed. Or maybe he never wanted to look closely enough to see the difference. I walked to his home office, a room he insisted I should not enter unsupervised because he did not want me to trip over cords or bump into sharp corners. Now I understood the real reason. This room held everything he did not want me to see. I sat in his chair and woke up his laptop. I had memorized his password from the rhythm of his typing months before. A few keystrokes later, his email account opened, and Kiana's messages bloomed across the screen like bruises. There were 8 months of messages. 8 months of "I miss you," and "I cannot wait to fall asleep next to you every night." 8 months of him complaining that I was a burden, that he felt trapped, that he was doing the best he could with a wife who could not see anything. One message stopped me cold. He had written that he was just waiting for the right time to leave me, that he needed to protect his fair share of our assets before filing for divorce. Our assets. The house we had bought together. The savings we built together. The investments I had once handled. My throat burned, but I kept reading. I printed the most damning emails and slipped them into a folder, then logged into our bank accounts. Tyrone had been siphoning money in amounts small enough that he probably thought no one would notice. $500 here, $1,000 there. I had already been tracking every withdrawal since the day my vision returned. I had spreadsheets, notes, and screenshots. Now I had context. My phone buzzed. It was my older sister, Carla, the only person who knew that I could see again. "How are you doing today?" She texted. I stared at the words for a moment, then felt my anger cool into something calmer and far more dangerous. "I am fine," I wrote back. "Tyrone just left for his meeting. I am on his computer now. Find anything new?" Carla asked. I smiled at the screen. "Just more proof that he is a liar and a cheater. Nothing surprising." "You are stronger than me," she replied. I would have confronted him the moment I could see. "Soon," I wrote. "Very soon. But I want everything in order first." A locked drawer in Tyrone's desk held bank statements for an account I had never heard of. It was at a different bank from ours, opened 6 months earlier, with regular deposits every few weeks. He had been feeding it steadily with money taken from our joint savings. I photographed every page with my phone. Then I checked his browser history and found searches about selling a house when one spouse is disabled and how assets are divided when one partner is non-working. It felt like reading a script written about me by someone who had erased my humanity and left only a list of liabilities. The irony almost made me dizzy. Tyrone believed that my blindness had made me helpless. He believed I depended entirely on him. For a long time, that had been partly true. I stopped working after the accident. I relied on him for transportation, for groceries, for managing the bills. But the moment my sight returned, I began rebuilding my independence in secret. I practiced walking alone. I learned to navigate our neighborhood using both memory and vision. I reached out to contacts I trusted. And I made appointments that Tyrone knew nothing about. One of those appointments had been with attorney Patricia Morrison, a sharp, composed woman whose office was in a high-rise downtown. The first time I walked in without my cane, I felt reckless and free. Patricia listened as I told her everything. The accident, the lost sight, the sudden return of my vision, Tyrone's affair, the money that seemed to be disappearing. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and folded her hands. "You have more courage than you realize, Monica," she said. "If you want to leave him and protect yourself, we can absolutely do that. But you will need evidence. A lot of it." "What kind of evidence?" I had asked that day, my voice trembling more from anger than fear. "Financial records," she answered. "Proof of adultery. Documentation of any hidden assets. Georgia is not a community property state, but judges look very unfavorably on deception, especially when one spouse is vulnerable. The more you bring me, the stronger your position will be." That was the day my quiet hurt hardened into strategy. I began to think like a consultant again, the way I had in my old career, breaking a complex problem into steps. Before the accident, I had worked as a business consultant, helping companies navigate change and restructure their organizations. I used to joke that my job was to walk into chaos and walk out with a plan. When I lost my sight, I thought I had lost that part of myself too. Sitting in Patricia's office, I realized those skills were still there. I just needed to apply them to my own life. I was not only a betrayed wife. I was the architect of my escape. Patricia referred me to a private investigator named Donald Pierce and a forensic accountant named Jerome Washington. Donald had been a police detective before starting his own firm. When he came to my house for the first time, he walked through each room with a practiced eye, asking gentle, precise questions. "You are certain your husband does not know you can see?" he asked. "I am certain," I replied. "He thinks I spend my days sitting in that chair, listening to audiobooks and waiting for him to come home." Donald nodded slowly. "Then we are going to use that to your advantage," he said. "I will follow him. I will document everywhere he goes with this other woman. We will get photographs, timestamps, locations, everything you need to prove adultery. Later, we can add cameras inside the house if you are comfortable with that." The thought of cameras in my bedroom made my stomach twist, but I understood the necessity. Tyrone had already turned our home into a stage for his lies. I would turn it into a record of the truth. Jerome was methodical in a different way. He sat across from me in his office, a neat space lined with framed certifications and tidy shelves of files, and spread my spreadsheets out in front of him. He studied every number, every date, every withdrawal. "This is very good work," he said finally. "You have already identified a pattern. I can trace the rest. I will need your signatures on a few forms so that I can request records from the banks. Based on what you have shown me, I suspect your husband has moved more money than you think." Now, standing alone in Tyrone's office at home, I thought about all the steps that had brought me to this moment. I closed his laptop, put everything back exactly where I had found it, and returned to my chair in the living room. I slipped on my dark glasses, picked up my Braille book, and resumed my pose. A few minutes later, I heard a car door outside. Tyrone came back inside, muttering about forgetting a folder. He walked straight past me into the office, rustled through some papers, and came out again. "I may be very late tonight," he said. "Do not wait up." "All right," I answered, fingers resting on the meaningless raised dots. "Have a good night." After the front door closed, the house fell into a deep quiet that felt like a held breath. I set the book aside and let myself feel the full weight of what I had lost. Not my sight, but my marriage, my trust, my belief that the man I loved would stand beside me when life turned hard. Tyrone had promised at our wedding to love me in sickness and in health. Apparently, in sickness had a time limit. But I was not the woman he believed I was anymore. I was not helpless. I was not blind. Over the next 3 days, I lived 2 parallel lives. In one, I played the part of the blind wife, moving slowly through the house with my cane, listening to audiobooks, asking Tyrone for help with small tasks. In the other, I was a strategist piecing together a case. I reviewed financial records, organized emails, and wrote meticulous notes for Patricia. I watched Tyrone through my hidden cameras, which Donald installed one quiet morning while Tyrone was at work. Small, wireless devices tucked into smoke detectors and decorative items in the living room, kitchen, office, and bedroom. "These cameras activate with motion and record to a secure cloud server," Donald explained, walking me through the app on my phone. "Only you have the login. Your husband will never know they are there unless you want him to." I thanked him, amazed at how calm my voice sounded. Once he left, I walked from room to room, looking up at the innocuous little lenses. It felt strange to know my own life would soon be recorded in secret, but it also felt like protection. Proof. Insurance against the gaslighting I knew would come. On a Thursday afternoon, Tyrone left for what his calendar said was an actual work meeting, according to the remote access I had learned to use. It amused me that he still put real appointments on his work calendar and labeled dates with Kiana as client dinners and project reviews. As soon as his car disappeared down the street, I changed clothes, took off my glasses, and called a ride service to take me downtown for my second meeting with Jerome. Jerome had called earlier that week sounding almost grim. "I have finished my preliminary review," he had said. "I would prefer to show you everything in person." Now, sitting across from him in his office, I understood why. He laid 3 thick folders in front of me. "Your husband opened 3 separate bank accounts in his name only at 3 different institutions," Jerome said. "He has transferred a total of $78,000 from your joint accounts into those accounts over the past 6 months. The number punched the air from my lungs. $78,000. Money we had saved from our salaries, from the sale of my car after the accident, from my disability settlement. Money I assumed was just there. There is more," Jerome continued gently. "He has also been paying for an apartment in Buckhead for the past 4 months. The lease is in his name. The rent is $2,200 per month. I have copies of the lease and the payments." My hands shook slightly as I turned the pages. Photos from the building's website showed a sleek modern building with a rooftop pool and city views. An apartment for Tyrone and Kiana. A separate life built with money he had stolen from me. "Can we get it back?" I asked finally. Jerome nodded. "Yes. Those funds are marital property transferred without your consent. A judge can order him to restore them, and the apartment payments will make him look very bad in court. He has also been researching how to use your disability against you," Jerome added, sliding another printout across the desk. "Searches about how assets are divided when one spouse is disabled, how to argue that the primary earner should keep the majority of marital property. It is calculated. I am sorry." I stared at the printed pages until the words blurred. Tyrone had not just cheated. He had prepared an exit plan designed to leave me with as little as possible, counting on my blindness to keep me from seeing it happen. When I stepped back into the Atlanta sunshine an hour later, my anger had crystallized into something clear and steady. I called Patricia from the sidewalk. "You were right," I said when she answered. "Jerome found everything. Accounts. An apartment. Search history about how to cheat me in court." Patricia exhaled slowly. "Then we are in an excellent position," she said. "Now we just need the final piece, proof of adultery inside the marital home. Once we have that, we can file, and he will not know what hit him." That night, after Tyrone fell asleep snoring softly beside me, I lay awake staring at the faint light from the street lamp outside filtering through the curtains. He shifted, one hand brushing my shoulder. "Monica," he whispered, half awake. "Are you up?" "Barely," I murmured. "Is something wrong?" He hesitated. "No. I was just thinking that we should talk soon. About us. About the future." My heart pounded, but my voice stayed calm. "All right," I said. "Whenever you are ready. Maybe this weekend," he said. "I will take you to dinner. Somewhere nice." He was going to end our marriage in public, I realized, where he could control the story and make himself look like a noble husband who had tried his best. I almost laughed at the predictability of it. "That sounds nice," I answered. "We can talk then." When he rolled over and drifted back to sleep, I lay awake, planning my next move. The following morning, I called Patricia again and told her what Jerome had found. She listened, then said, "This case is one of the strongest I have seen, Monica. The only thing that would make it stronger is if we catch him bringing his girlfriend into your house. It would demonstrate not only adultery but profound disrespect for the marriage. Do you think he would ever do that?" "I think he will," I said slowly, remembering a recent phone call I had overheard. He told her he wished she could see the house. I have a feeling he is just waiting for the right opportunity. That afternoon, Carla came over with coffee and a determined look on her face. "We need to talk about what happens after you drop this bomb," she said, walking straight into my kitchen like she always did. "Where you will live, what money you can access, who will support you when Tyrone finally realizes you are not blind and not helpless." We sat at the table and made lists. Joint accounts. My small personal savings account under my maiden name. A credit card Tyrone did not know about. Names of friends and professional contacts I could trust. "First," Carla said, tapping her pen on the notepad, "you need to move some money out of the joint accounts into your personal account. You are entitled to half." If you wait until after he is served, he will empty those accounts the same day. I hated the idea of moving money behind Tyrone's back, even after everything he had done. It felt sneaky. Then I remembered the $78,000 and the apartment. You are right, I said. We will transfer $20,000 today. We spent the next hour logging into accounts, transferring funds, and changing passwords. We set up two-factor authentication on my email and banking apps. We talked about where I would stay if things became volatile when he was served. You can always come to my house, Carla said. But I think he will be too shocked to do much at first. He has built his entire plan on the idea that you are blind and dependent. He will not know how to react when he realizes you are neither. The next piece of the plan fell into place almost by accident. That evening, Tyrone came home in a suspiciously good mood and tossed his keys on the counter. How was your day? He asked. Quiet, I said, resting my hand on my cane. I talked to Carla for a while. She wants me to come stay with her for a few days next week. Spend time with the kids. It might be nice to get out of the house. I waited, listening for his reaction. That sounds great, Tyrone said, a little too quickly. You should go. The kids would love to see you. I tilted my head. You are sure you will be fine here alone? Of course, he said. I can take care of myself for a few days. His voice betrayed a hint of excitement he probably thought I could not see. All right, I said quietly. I will let Carla know. As soon as he disappeared into his office, I texted my sister. He wants me to go. Operation Final Evidence starts Monday. On Sunday evening, Carla drove to our house to pick me up. Tyrone carried my overnight bag to her car, kissed my forehead, and told Carla to take care of her. Carla's smile was tight. I always do, she said. We drove around the corner, out of Tyrone's line of sight, and straight to a hotel 15 minutes away that I had booked under my maiden name, Monica Foster. As I checked in, I felt both anxious and oddly exhilarated. I was no longer hiding because I was afraid. I was hiding because I had a plan. In my hotel room, I opened my laptop and logged into the camera feeds. On the screen, I saw my empty living room, my quiet kitchen, my bedroom with the neatly made bed I no longer shared in the same way. Tyrone's car sat in the driveway. A few minutes later, he appeared in the living room camera, phone in hand, pacing, smiling, gesturing. I could not hear his words from that distance, but I knew exactly who he was talking to. I ordered room service and settled in to wait. Monday passed uneventfully. Tyrone went to work, came home alone, and spent the evening in his office. He video called Kiana from there, which I watched on the office camera, saving every clip to an external drive. On Tuesday morning, he left the house at his usual time. My chest tightened when I saw his car pull back into the driveway just before lunchtime. This time, he was not alone. The passenger door opened, and Kiana stepped out, wearing a fitted red dress and high heels, her hair styled perfectly. Even through the camera feed, I could see the spark in her eyes as she looked up at the house. Tyrone opened the front door and led her inside. The living room camera captured them as they walked in, his arm around her waist, her hand resting on his chest. This place is beautiful, Kiana said, her voice clear through the audio. You did not tell me it was this nice. Wait until you see the bedroom, Tyrone replied. There is a huge walk-in closet. I know you will love it. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to keep watching as they moved from room to room, touring the home I had chosen and decorated before the accident. Where does your wife spend her time? Kiana asked at one point, pausing near my favorite chair by the window. Usually right there, Tyrone answered. She listens to audiobooks, feels her way around. It is pretty sad. Something in my chest twisted, but there was more steel than pain in it now. You really think she will not suspect anything? Kiana asked. She is blind, he said easily. She depends on me for everything. She has nowhere to go. I will be out of this soon, and then this will be our place. They went into the bedroom, and the camera there caught everything. Kiana sat on the edge of the bed, laughing as she tried on one of my necklaces from the jewelry box. Tyrone lay beside her, telling stories about the things my wife never sees, oblivious to the fact that I was seeing every second from a hotel a few miles away. I recorded it all, every kiss, every whispered promise, every casual insult. It was painful, but it was also liberating. There would be no arguments about what had really happened. I would have proof. After 2 hours, they finally left. I watched their car drive away, and then sat back in my chair, shaking with a mixture of rage and relief. The last piece was in place. I called Patricia. I have everything, I said. Video of him bringing her into the house. Into our bedroom. They talked about turning my home into theirs. Patricia did not bother hiding her satisfaction. Bring it to my office this afternoon, she said. We will start the paperwork. He has no idea what is coming. That afternoon, I sat in Patricia's conference room, my laptop open between us. We watched the key clips together. Tyrone leading Kiana through the house. Kiana trying on my necklace. Tyrone calling my blindness sad. Patricia's jaw clenched. This is extraordinary evidence, she said. We are filing for divorce tomorrow morning. Adultery, dissipation of marital assets, concealment of funds. We will request that you keep the house, that he return all money he moved, and that he pay alimony for a reasonable period. What happens when he finds out I can see? I asked quietly. Patricia looked at me thoughtfully. That will be your choice, she said. We could reveal it in court, but I suspect it will have more impact if he hears it from you once he has been served. His entire legal strategy, from what Jerome found, is built on the assumption that you are blind and powerless. When he learns that assumption is false, he will lose any sense of control he believes he has. The next morning, Patricia filed the divorce petition. A process server took the papers to Tyrone's office. At 10:15, my phone rang. It was Tyrone, his voice loud and raw. What is this? He shouted. I just got served with divorce papers in front of my entire team. Adultery? Dissipation of assets? Monica, what are you doing? For the first time in months, I did not soften my voice. Exactly what it looks like, I said evenly. I am divorcing you for cheating on me and stealing from me. You cannot know that, he snapped. You cannot know about Kiana. You cannot know about any accounts. You are blind, Monica. You cannot see anything. You are confused. My lips curved into a humorless smile. Here is the thing, Tyrone, I said. I am not blind. I have not been blind for 3 months. My vision came back, and instead of telling you, I watched you. I saw you transfer our money. I watched you walk into that apartment in Buckhead. I watched you bring your girlfriend into my home yesterday. I have it all on video. Silence stretched across the line. When Tyrone finally spoke, his voice sounded as if someone had pulled the floor out from under him. You are lying, he whispered. You have been able to see this whole time? Every day, I replied. Every morning you kissed my forehead and told me how hard you were working for us. I could see. Every time you walked into another room to talk to her, I could see. Every time you checked the mirror to make sure you did not smell like her perfume, I could see. So you set me up, he said, anger rising again. You played me. I shook my head even though he could not see me. No, I answered. You set yourself up. You made choices. I simply refused to remain blind to them, in any sense. You might want to read the petition carefully. I am asking for the house, the return of every dollar you moved, and alimony. You were planning to leave me with nothing. You will not get that chance. I cannot afford that, he said, panic creeping into his voice. If you take the house and the money, I will have nothing. You should have thought about that before you spent our savings on an apartment and furniture for another woman, I replied. Goodbye, Tyrone. He called again and again that afternoon. I let every call go to voicemail. I had already said everything that needed to be said. The next time we would speak would be with our attorneys present. Over the next 3 weeks, Tyrone hired a lawyer, a nervous man named Paul Stevens, and tried to fight the terms of the divorce. Patricia answered every objection with evidence. Bank statements, email chains, photos from Donald showing Tyrone and Kiana entering the Buckhead apartment, clips from the cameras. Each time Paul tried to argue that the settlement was too harsh, Patricia slid another piece of documentation across the table. It was like watching a wall crumble one brick at a time. The day of mediation arrived. The session was held in a conference room at Patricia's firm, with a retired judge, Elaine Turner, acting as mediator. I dressed carefully that morning in a crisp blue blouse and black slacks. I applied subtle makeup, put on small gold earrings, and for the first time in a long time, left my dark glasses and cane at home. When Patricia and I walked into the room, Tyrone stood up automatically, then froze. He stared at me as if he were seeing a ghost. His suit hung loosely on his thinner frame, and dark circles had formed under his eyes. I met his gaze directly and walked to my chair without hesitation. Hello, Tyrone, I said calmly as I sat down. You look surprised. The mediator watched us with quiet curiosity. Tyrone's throat worked. You are not wearing your glasses, he said finally. You walked in here without anyone helping you. I folded my hands on the table. That is because I can see, I replied. I told you that on the phone. You just did not want to believe it. Judge Turner began the session, going through each section of the proposed settlement. Mrs. Ellis will retain sole ownership of the marital home, she read. Mr. Ellis will return all funds transferred from joint accounts into separate accounts during the previous 6 months. Mrs. Ellis will receive alimony of $3,000 per month for 24 months. Paul Stevens argued that the alimony was excessive and that Tyrone had been the primary earner. Patricia responded with documentation, showing that I had stopped working only because of the accident and that Tyrone had used my disability as an opportunity to steal. At one point, Patricia opened her laptop and turned it so that Tyrone could see. She played the video clip of him and Kiana in our bedroom, laughing and kissing, while he told her that I just sat in the living room. Color flooded his face as Judge Turner watched, expressionless. These recordings were made in Mrs. Ellis's own home, Patricia said. She had every right to monitor activities there, especially when she suspected financial and marital misconduct. Tyrone glared at me across the table. You recorded us, he said hoarsely. In our bedroom. In my bedroom, I corrected. In my house. While you were cheating on me and planning to leave me with nothing. Yes, I recorded you. I needed the truth because I knew you would lie. Judge Turner asked Tyrone if he wished to contest any of the factual evidence presented. After a long pause, he shook his head. His lawyer finally admitted they were prepared to accept the settlement with only minor adjustments to payment schedules. When the mediator stepped out for a moment to finalize the paperwork, Tyrone looked at me, his expression haunted. You did not have to go this far, he said quietly. You destroyed me. I held his gaze. I did not destroy you, I answered. You destroyed yourself when you cheated, when you stole, when you decided that my blindness made me a convenient obstacle. All I did was make sure there was a record of what you chose to do. A few weeks later, we stood in a smaller courtroom in downtown Atlanta in front of Judge Annette Coleman, who had reviewed the settlement and Tyrone's last-minute objections. Paul tried one more time to argue that the alimony was too high and that the division of assets was unfair. Patricia presented the entire packet of evidence to the judge. Judge Coleman took her time, watching the videos, examining the financial records, reading the emails. When she looked up, her eyes were very sharp. Mr. Ellis, she said, I see clear evidence that you engaged in an extramarital relationship, transferred nearly $80,000 of marital funds into secret accounts, and attempted to build a legal strategy that would use your wife's disability to deprive her of a fair share of your shared property. In light of that behavior, this settlement is not punitive. It is restrained. Tyrone shifted uncomfortably. Yes, Your Honor, he said, voice barely audible. Judge Coleman approved the settlement, ordered him to vacate the house within 30 days, and to restore all funds as outlined. When the gavel came down, I felt something inside me unclench. It was not exactly joy, and it was not simple relief. It was a deep, steady sense of rightness. Outside the courtroom, Tyrone approached me while Patricia spoke with the clerk. Monica, he said, stopping a few feet away. I know you do not owe me anything, but I wanted to say that I am sorry. For all of it. Losing the house, the money, that is bad, but losing you is worse. I know I caused that. I studied his face, the man I had once loved so fiercely, and felt almost nothing. You threw me away, Tyrone, I said. When I lost my sight, I thought we would face that challenge together. Instead, you decided it was a burden you did not want. You chose someone else. You chose to steal from me. Let us not pretend you lost something by accident. He swallowed. Is there any way we could ever be friends? He asked. I almost laughed. No, I said simply. We are finished. Transfer the money. Follow the court order. That is all there is left between us. In the months that followed, my life changed again, but this time in ways I chose. I stayed in the house, overseeing contractors who painted the walls in rich, warm colors and replaced the furniture Tyrone had chosen. The bedroom where he had betrayed me became a sanctuary with a new cherrywood bed frame, deep purple linens, and artwork that made me feel calm and powerful instead of small and wounded. Every change I made felt like reclaiming territory. At the same time, I revived my career. I reached out to my former boss, Richard Thompson, and met him at a coffee shop downtown. When I told him my vision had returned and that I was starting my own firm, Vision Consulting, his brows shot up. I laid a detailed proposal on the table, outlining how I could help his company manage the messy merger he was dealing with. He hesitated at first, worried that 2 years away from the field might have dulled my skills. Then he read through my plan and smiled slowly. "You have always been persuasive, Monica," he said. "All right. You have 2 weeks. Conduct your assessment. If your report is good, we move forward." Those 2 weeks reminded me of who I was apart from my marriage. I interviewed employees from both companies, listened to their concerns, observed meetings, and mapped out the culture clash in careful, analytic detail. When I presented my findings to Richard, he listened without interrupting, hands folded under his chin. When I finished, he nodded. "This is excellent work," he said. "Better than the big firm we hired last year. Let me know your availability. I would like to bring you on for the full integration project." From there, Vision Consulting grew quickly. Richard referred me to 2 other companies. I hired an assistant, Exes, who handled scheduling and research with cheerful efficiency. I built a simple website that highlighted my services and early successes. I spoke at a local business breakfast about navigating organizational change and walked away with a stack of business cards from potential clients. Each new project felt like another brick in the life I was building for myself. 6 months after the divorce, my sister and I met for dinner at a new restaurant in Midtown. "You look different," Carla said as soon as I sat down. "Lighter. Happier. Like yourself again." I smiled, realizing it was true. "I am happy," I said. "The house finally feels like mine. The business is doing better than I expected. For the first time in a long time, when I wake up in the morning, I am excited about my day." Carla raised her glass. "To you," she said. "To seeing clearly in every way." A few weeks later, my private investigator, Donald, called with an update I had not asked for, but was not surprised to hear. "Thought you might want to know," he said. "Your ex and his girlfriend broke up. She left once she realized he did not have as much money as she thought. He has been struggling financially since the divorce." I listened and felt a faint flicker of satisfaction, but nothing more. "Thank you for letting me know," I said. "But honestly, Donald, his life is no longer my concern." Life moved forward. My parents flew up from Florida to visit and see my renovated house. My father walked through each room slowly, nodding with approval. "You did all this yourself," he said. "I am proud of you." My mother hugged me in the kitchen. "You could have let what happened crush you," she said softly. "You did not. You rebuilt." We sat at the dining table, one I had chosen and paid for myself, and talked about work, family, and the future. For the first time in a long time, the future did not scare me. On an ordinary weekday morning about a year after the divorce, I walked into a coffee shop to meet a potential client and accidentally collided with a man carrying 2 drinks. Coffee splashed, apologies spilled out of both of us, and I looked up to see a man about my age with kind eyes and an embarrassed smile. "I am so sorry," he said. "Let me buy you another coffee. That was entirely my fault." I laughed, surprised at how easy it felt. "We can share the blame," I said. I was not paying attention either. His name was Malcolm, an architect who had recently moved to Atlanta for a new position. We ended up talking far longer than I intended about work, cities, favorite books, and food. When he asked if he could call me sometime, I hesitated for only a second before giving him my number. It was not a grand romantic moment. It was simple, quiet, and real. Over the following weeks, we met for coffee, then dinner, then walks through Piedmont Park. I told him that I was recently divorced and not interested in rushing into anything. He respected that. We just enjoyed one another's company, letting something gentle grow at its own pace. About 18 months after the divorce, I was shopping for furniture for my new office space when I saw Tyrone across the store. For a second, we both froze. Then he walked over, moving more slowly than I remembered. "Monica," he said. "Hi." "Hello, Tyrone," I replied calm. He looked older, a little worn around the edges. "You look good," he said. "Really good." "Thank you," I answered. "How are you?" "Getting by," he said. "I heard about your company. Sounds like you are doing very well." I nodded. "I am." There was an awkward silence, filled with all the things that no longer needed to be said. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally. "Why did you wait? When your vision came back, why did you not just confront me?" I considered the question, then answered honestly. "Because I knew you would lie," I said. "If I had confronted you immediately, you would have told me I was imagining things, that you were just stressed, that Kiana was just a colleague. You would have hidden the money faster. By waiting, I gave you time to show me exactly who you were. I gathered proof, and then I walked away on my terms." He nodded slowly, accepting the truth. "Are you happy?" he asked. I thought about my renovated house, my thriving business, the team I was building, the partnership I had just signed with Thompson Industries that would expand vision consulting into Charlotte and beyond. I thought about coffee with Malcolm and laughter with Carla and quiet evenings in a home that finally felt peaceful. Yes, I said. I am very happy. Good, he said softly. You deserve that. I gave him a small, polite smile. I hope you figure out how to be better than you were with me, I said. Then I turned and walked away without looking back. That night, I sat in my home office surrounded by evidence of the life I had built since everything fell apart. Framed articles about Vision Consulting's work hung on the walls. Project plans for upcoming expansions lay neatly stacked on my desk. Photos of my small team at a recent celebration reminded me that I was no longer alone in this work. My phone buzzed. It was Malcolm, asking if I wanted to meet for a late dinner after he finished at a site visit. I smiled as I texted back that I would be ready in 30 minutes. Before I turned off my desk lamp, I glanced at the window where, 2 years earlier, I had sat pretending to read while my husband plotted a future without me. That woman had seemed fragile at the time, but looking back, I saw her clearly. She was not weak. She was gathering information. She was waiting for the right moment. She was learning that sight is not only about what the eyes can perceive. It is about seeing your own worth, your own strength, and your own capacity to rebuild. I picked up my keys and walked through the house that belonged entirely to me now. The walls, the furniture, the artwork, the life inside it had all been chosen by the person I had become. I did not need Tyrone's apology or approval. I did not need anyone to tell me that I had done the right thing. I knew. I had taken betrayal and turned it into transformation. I had taken blindness and turned it into clarity. And as I stepped out into the Atlanta night to meet whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. I would never again let anyone convince me that I could not see. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.